How did the G20 go?
It went very well. All the members agreed that the EU must stabilize its debt and get the economy growing again.
That is good news. How are they going to do it?
I'm not sure.
But at least they are sure.
I'm not sure.
I don't understand the problem. A few years ago everything seemed really good. What happened?
The problem was that everyone borrowed too much and now they can repay it.
I see. But when they borrowed the money, did they need the housing and other stuff that they bought?
Yes.
So if they needed it and we were able to make it and everyone was better off, why couldn't they keep it?
Because it would not be fair. They would end up getting stuff for nothing.
I see.
And the banks who loaned them the money would go bankrupt.
But why is that so bad? Companies and people go bankrupt all the time. That is how the capitalist economy works. Only the strongest survive.
But banks are different. If one bank goes bankrupt, depositors at other banks can get nervous and cause a run.
What is a run?
It is when all the depositors in a bank try to get their money back at the same time.
Oh. But no bank can ever repay all depositors all at once because they have loaned the money deposited to other people.
Yes, that is why banks collapse when there is a run and all the depositors lose their money.
That does not sound good.
No. It would not be good. It would be like the 1930s.
What happened then?
A series of bank runs led to widespread collapse in the financial system, which led to 20% unemployment. This led to widespread social unrest and ultimately to the Second World War.
That would not be good. I am very glad we have learned the lesson. What lesson did we learn?
We learned that we must not let banks collapse.
How can we stop banks from collapsing?
Governments can use quantitative easing.
Oh. What is quantitative easing?
It is when governments print money and give it to the banks so they can keep lending and repay their depositors on demand.
But hasn't that just shifted the problem from the banks and their depositors to the government and citizens?
Yes. But it has saved the banks and allowed them to keep paying big bonuses to their staff.
So now the crisis has been fixed.
Not exactly. The banks no longer have to worry because their governments have guaranteed them.
So that's the solution then?
Not exactly. The banks now know that whatever happens, the government will come to their rescue.
But isn't that good?
Not exactly. The bankers now get to keep all the rewards, while passing all the risk to the community.
But at least we won't have a repeat of the 1930s.
I'm not sure. Now the governments are so indebted that everyone is worried that they will go bankrupt.
Oh. I don't understand. Don't we have more people than ever before, who need clothing, food and shelter?
Yes.
And aren't there lots of companies with spare capacity around the world and people who are unemployed who can be employed to make what everyone needs?
Yes.
So what's the problem? Why don't we just make what everyone needs, in the process employing people who want to work?
The problem is simple. People don't have sufficient money to signal what they want the market to make for them.
Oh. But the government prints money to give to banks.
Yes.
So why couldn't it print money and give an equal amount to everyone?
It could.
Oh. So then people would spend the money on the things they need. Demand would go up, firms would hire and borrow more to increase capacity, values would rise, deposits increase and everyone would be happy again.
That's true. But the issue of the new money to everyone would create a bigger government deficit.
But the government is already doing quantitative easing for the banks.
Yes.
So wouldn't it be better to give the money directly to the people who need it so they can spend it on what they need?
I don't know. If everyone is just given money, won't that discourage people from working?
Only if you keep handing it out. But the idea is just to kickstart the process.
I see. But what if you overshoot? It could cause runaway inflation.
That's true. Except just as governments can create new money, they can also destroy it.
What do you mean?
By applying a goods and services tax, the government can increase the price of all goods and services, which will reduce demand without increasing inflation.
But then the government will have extra money to spend. How will that help?
It would not help if it spent the money. But just as the government can create money out of thin air, so it can just as easily write it off.
Oh, I get it. The power they use to create new money out of thin air, they can use to destroy money that has already been issued.
Yes, by clawing it back through the GST and simply writing it off.
That's amazing. The government really does have the power to ensure everyone has enough money to signal what they want to meet their needs, but not so much that they do not want to work, or so much that inflation takes hold.
Yes.
Wow. If the government did that, everyone would benefit. People who need goods and services would have the money to buy them. The companies who produce the goods and services would grow, increasing demand for workers. The banks would have more deposits generated by the extra production, matched by increasing demand for loans for business, housing and other purposes as incomes grow, and governments would get re-elected.
Yes. And as the cycle began to turn, the government could increase the GST rate to damp demand.
Oh. But then every cycle the GST rate would have to increase.
Not necessarily. As a first stimulus, the GST rate could be progressively reduced to its starting level of the previous cycle.
But what if that was not enough?
Well, if the economy was still stalled, the government could then reinstitute a series of flat payments for everyone until demand picked up again.
I see. It is like the government now tries to do with interest rates.
Yes. But more targeted to direct demand.
I see. But if it is so easy, why don't governments do it?
I don't know.